You know you come or you've come into your own. How do you know? How do you know how to do it? How do you know that you have come into your own? When I say into your own, what I mean is that you are sure of what you thought was true. How do you come into that experience where you become sure of what you thought was true? I got out of my car the other day, and I was I entered into this religious building, and there was a whole bunch of religious folks that were in there shaking hands, talking. They were dressed real nicely, suits and ties and dresses for the ladies. And man, people were smiling and they were eating food. And then I entered into that space, and then they greeted me and welcomed me in. And then the clock struck 4 p.m. And all the conversation stopped. Everybody stopped their conversation and went straight to their chair and had a seat. And then somebody walked up to the front and began to talk about their experience with death. Right? This was a funeral. It was the funeral of somebody who I love, somebody who was a family member of mine, and he started talking about his beliefs, his convictions. He used the Bible to justify some of his beliefs, some of the things that he knew to be true. And most of the congregants seemed to agree with the conclusions that he made out of this text, and the conclusions that he made just in general. And then they sang a hymn, and then the service for my loved one was over. Like, that was it. And most of what was spoken about was the comfort that they found in their religion, and the comfort that they found in the afterlife, like what they thought the religion taught them about what takes place in the afterlife. And once all the handshaking had ended and people began to depart, some people started coming over and giving some pamphlets and brochures and paraphernalia from their religion, and started to invite me to some of their activities, some of their religious gatherings and things like that. And I just shook my head and I nodded, and that was that. Like, because when he talked about being so certain about what he thought happened after someone died, I thought as he spoke that I'm uncertain about what happens after someone dies. What I am certain about is that people who are still on earth mourn the passing of a loved one. When someone dies, people who love that person oftentimes miss them and cry and weep and share stories about that person. That's the shared human experience that I'm certain about, and that's what I know to be true. And that's what I'm more certain of. I'm uncertain of all the other stuff, but that they spoke about. But what I knew to be true was what I knew to be true, and what they knew to be true was what they knew to be true, and that was all there was to it. Right? That was all there was to it. Each side, them and me, came to our own. Right? At some point, we came into our own. How do you come into your own? How does that happen? How does someone process these events that take place in life to where they come into their own, where they begin to understand that they begin to live to understand that something is a thought that they have is true, that they're coming into this spot. They move from one destination and they go to the next destination, and they're coming into their own. And when they're coming into their own, they're recognizing that what they think is true. They're understanding more now today than they were yesterday, that what they believe is true, truthful, true to them. Their thoughts are true. And I would even add the idea of feelings. Their thoughts and feelings are true. Right? And so like here in this poem, this last stanza, it's 2 lines in the poem written by Robert Frost. Robert Frost is the poet, and it was written in about, 1921. And early on in the poem, he's talking about the speaker goes into this woods where the trees are so rooted, so stable that they don't like sway in the wind. They're so stable. They don't sway because they're rooted in the ground, Though where they are is pretty ominous. Like it feels like there's gloom and doom going on in that area. But Robert Frost still has the speaker writes that the speaker goes into that same area, regardless of how that person felt. That individual decided if they were going to come into their own, they would have to go where they needed to go, regardless of what anyone else was doing. They had to individually go there by themselves. It had to be a personal decision that they made to go in that direction, and go in this instance where it was kind of scary. It's kind of scary to go into your own initially, but you do that, and this is what happens, is that you become more sure of all I thought was true. This is what the reward of coming into your own is that you become more sure of all you thought was true. Now I do want to point out that this line here, the second to last line, now they would not find me changed from him they knew. It doesn't mean that you change so much that you're unrecognizable. Now all of a sudden you look different, or all of a sudden you talk different, but there's something that is different about you, and that is that all that you knew was true, all that you thought was true, you knew was true. You became more sure of those things, and that is what it means to come into your own. How do you come into your own? How do you come into your own? In this poem, Frost suggests that we go into our own by going into a direction. It's almost like the road less traveled. It's the same kind of thing, that you go into your own path. That the path that is right for you to take, you go there. You don't go there just because it's the lone path necessarily. In this text, it's not necessarily saying that. In the road less traveled, maybe that was the case. But in this case, it's just, hey, man, that's the direction that I want to go into, and that's the direction I'm headed. Go into your own. What does it mean for you to go into your own? For Robert Frost, that's what it means. For me, to come into your own means that you have now figured out what is going to make your definition of successful, and what is it going to make you successful, right? So success can look very different from anything, from anyone else, from all the people around. It's not all the same. It does not all look the same to everyone. So what does success look like to you? And are you living in that? Or are you headed in that direction? That's what it means to come into your own, in terms of what I feel and what I believe. And also the ability to stand on that which you think is true or not, even if no one else believes or agrees with what you're saying. And so my question to you as I depart is, how do you come into your own? And what is the reward of coming into your own, as far as you can see it? Well, that's all I have for this one. I'll see you in the next one.